This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name is Russell Osborne and this is an independent England football supporters podcast. Now the Women's World Cup is upon us and I'll be looking to get some content out on that very soon. And of course you can find plenty of older episodes at your provider of choice as well as threelionspodcast.com. But this episode is slightly different and one I've been looking forward to doing. It still has our national team at its heart though. Now you join me, I'm on the South Bank in London, looking onto the River Thames on a bright, warm day. Sort of day where at 6 in the evening I really should have bought my sunglasses. But I can see a couple of red double-decker buses pass on the other side of the river as I look towards, I think that's Somerset House. And I'm pretty sure that's Temple Tube Station over there too. Waterloo Bridge is to my left with its famous book market underneath it. I've had a quick look around there. Again, more red buses I can see going across it. There's a few barges going past me as well on the river. Loads of people bustling about, eating, strolling, people watching. Now Millwall is 3.5 miles southeast from here, Chelsea 5 miles southwest, Wembley 13 miles northwest. However, it's not a football stadium I've come to today. It is in fact the National Theatre. Now I've never been inside here before. I've seen it from the outside, I've been past it many a time. It's a large building built in 1976. Now I looked this up. Apparently it is of a brutalist type of architecture. Lots of square, straight edges, lots of concrete. It's like a beigey colour. Now this isn't the sort of theatre you'd find up the road in the West End. You'd find the likes of the Palladium, the Apollo, Savoy, Lyceum, the Theatre Royale. In fact, actually, it was a Theatre Royale was the last theatre I went to. Must have been about a year ago to watch Frozen, the musical, for my daughter's birthday. Don't mock. If you get the chance to go. It is very good. Now, I don't know if there's an app for ticking off theatres in the same way you do stadiums on Footballogy. There might be. However, I'm not here to talk about Frozen or apps. I'm here to come and see Dear England. It is the latest production by British playwright James Graham. You may recognise that name as he was the man that brought us the ITV drama Quiz. You remember that one? The one based around the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and the coffin scenario. Well, his latest stage offering is a look at England manager Gareth Southgate and his journey and what it entails to be English within that journey. Now this production began on the 20th of June and is running until the 11th of August. And so far, both the Evening Standard and Time Out have given it 4 out of 5 stars. Time Out, they said James Graham's new play is a wildly entertaining romp through the reformation of the England men's team under Joseph Fine's pitch-perfect Gareth Southgate. And The Guardian says, a touching, funny retelling of Gareth Southgate's quiet revolution. It's a game of two halves, but James Graham's dramatisation of Southgate rescuing a languishing England team delivers tension and movement. So, just like the football, I've got my ticket, I'll get a programme. Not sure if they'll have half-time pies, but I'll get a pint as well. But I am hoping to be entertained. Looking forward to this one. So, I'll see you at full time. Wow, that was a journey. What a performance. Enjoyed that. Now, I've got to be careful how I describe it to you, because I don't want to give too much away if you're intending on going. But, what an auditorium. A semicircular seating arrangement, for which I was lower tier, 5 rows from the front, touching distance, if you will. Old style English type of ground, close to the action, yet with plenty of leg room, which was handy. Now it's set on a revolving circular stage with an almost like halo type light above it, which works really well. There's very little in the way of set, but again, what they have works really well. Now the first half was very football related. The opening piece, 1996 Gareth, being looked over by 2018 Gareth. His hair's on the back of your neck stuff, really is. And then sort of midway through that half, his take on telling the team of his penalty trauma is quite touching. Whether it was actually played out like that, we'll never know. But Joseph Fiennes, who plays Gareth, has got his mannerisms spot on, with a touch of comedy thrown in as well. And I must say, as do many of the other actors, special mention goes to a couple of guys, Josh Barrow, who plays Jordan Pickford, and Will Close, who plays Harry Kane. He gets a lot of laughs. Yeah, he's very funny. Second half, this is where it got a little deeper. All those events that I'm sure you're aware of, but perhaps forgotten about how much they interfered with the team and Gareth. Perhaps interfere is the wrong word. Maybe additional pressure on Gareth. Racism, Brexit, politics, change of prime ministers, there's the taking of the knee, COVID and the pandemic, of course. And then there were the conversations around the flag, the cross of St. George, and what does it stand for? And then it took in the Euros, the way Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho and Bukayo Saka performed. That was really good to see, and all the surrounding noise that went with it. And then the Lionesses had a little part to play too, which got a rousing reception from the crowd. And Qatar and penalties once again. And then some Sweet Caroline thrown in for good measure. But ultimately, it's a performance about England under Gareth Southgate and how far they've come, how far we've come. You know, since the days of Graham Taylor, Sven and Fabio, who all get a mention too. Now, we've not picked up that trophy yet, we all know that, but we're getting closer. And this performance is played out in a story of parts. Perhaps that final part is yet to be performed. I don't know. But if you get a chance to go and see this, if you get a chance to go and see Dear England, then I highly recommend it. As I mentioned, it runs until the 11th of August at the National Theatre on London's South Bank. You can get tickets at nationaltheatre.org.uk.
Now, I'm delighted to say I've been joined by Ket Matsena, who plays Raheem Sterling. Kel, hello there.
Hello. How you doing?
Oh, very well, thank you. Yourself?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you.
Well, firstly, thanks for joining us. But congratulations on a great production, Dear England. It was great. Really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. It's been a real whirlwind since we opened up. And yeah, I mean the responses have just been amazing. So yeah, incredibly humbled and very grateful and feeling blessed to be on this production.
How long ago did it sort of all begin? Because obviously it began at the National Theatre
Mm,
in was it sort of June time? But there
mm.
must have been going back before that.
Oh yes, yeah, going back a very long time. Maybe even years. I'm not too sure of the timeline in terms of when the writer James Graham started crafting ideas and pulling things together, as well as linking up with the director Rupert Gould. But they've been working away at this, and they've been a whole process. And I think last year was when they were sort of workshops with a few actors in a room and trying to figure out what the storyline would be, because it's very reactive. It is very in the moment. It's sort of talking about what's happening now. So it was very very reactive to what was really happening with the England team. And then our rehearsals started end of April, I believe.
Okay.
So we had an intense sort of 7 week process of rehearsals. And then we were in there taking the show. And then before I knew it, boom, we were in front of audiences in June.
Well,
Mm,
you say rehearsals began in April.
mm.
How did you become involved? How did the role come about? And sort of when was that? When did you know you were going to be part of it?
Wow. So a few months ago, I saw the announcement of the play on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh, that's really cool. That sounds like a fun play."
Yeah.
And then sort of thought nothing of it. And then it must have been late March, early April. I was working on another gig, and I got an email from my agent about the audition to play Raheem Sterling. And I just chuckled because a few times, a few people had said to me that, "Oh, I look like Raheem Sterling." I was actually in Switzerland in 2021 filming something, doing a film called Mad Heidi. And I walked into this Swiss bar, and there were these two guys looking at me very strangely. And I thought, oh, what the heck is about to happen here?
No
And then they
way.
just and then they walk up to me, and then they go, Raheem Sterling. And they show me a photo, and they go, you look like him. And it was just a very funny time. So I'd had comparisons with him. So when the audition came through, there was just such an excitement. And also to hear about the approach, so much of the movement and all that sort of stuff, which is my sort of background. So yeah, I did a few auditions, met with the cast and directors from the National, and then met with the writer, James Graham, director, Rupert Gould, and then with one of the movement directors, Hannes. And then they were like, yeah, you've got the gig. So I found out a couple weeks before rehearsal started.
Oh,
So I was on cloud nine, and then boom, walked into the room, and it was just a crazy, enormous energy. And yeah, we've just been riding that wave ever since.
superb. So, I mean, I imagine you say that people have said that you look like Raheem Sterling. I can imagine some of the other guys that you're working alongside, the actors, that you have to excuse me if I can't remember their names off the top of my head, but the guy who plays
Mm.
Harry Kane, Jordan
Oh,
Pickford, they've both got they look like the people they're portraying. So I did wonder to myself, is there sort of some kind of looky-likey casting agency? But I didn't think it would be as like that.
it's really interesting. I'm not too sure about the in-depth thing about the way cast and directors work, but I mean the casting team at the National are incredibly talented and wonderful people, and it's a skill cast and directors just have, that they see these faces and they can imagine these people, and they sort of get a feeling and a vibe of certain actors who may have auditioned before. And once they know the real characters or people from real life, they can sort of mishmash that. But yeah, it's quite uncanny. Will Close, who plays Harry Kane, he's just great, and he just feels like you're around Harry Kane at times. And then, Josh Barrow, who plays Jordan Pickford as well, he's from Newcastle as well, and he just sounds and has the same energy. So it's quite wonderful. And you see some of the younger audience members who come see the show, they get a bit spooked and wide-eyed when they see certain players from a distance, because they're still trying to process of like, is that actually Jordan Pickford or not? So it's very entertaining.
And I guess we should also say Joseph Fiennes, who plays Gareth Southgate, looks incredibly like him as well. But
yeah, incredible. I mean, what an incredible actor, incredible human being, and just his level of detail and skill is unbelievable. And someone who's done as much as he has. He's one of the most generous people I've worked with. It really is incredible. Just his ethos and stuff. He's just quintessentially Gareth at times, and it's just it's pretty awesome to have him lead in the cast.
Well, I imagine everyone has their own ways of sort of researching the character they're playing, but what sort of research did you have to do on Raheem?
For me, I spent a lot of time watching loads of YouTube videos, and I think the algorithm must think I'm a stalker, because all I get suggested now is Raheem Sterling moments. But literally, I spent hours just mainly trying to get that sort of North London sound, not an exact sort of impression of his voice, but to get at least that North London sound, because I'm not originally from London, so I just wanted to sound authentically like him. So spent a lot of time sitting on the tube on that Northern line, listening to his voice, and then spent a lot of time watching videos about the way he sits and listens in dressing rooms or in moments, in-game moments, the way he watches his other players or watches the coach, because there's a lot of those sort of moments in the show. And for myself as an actor, I try and make sure that I stay active as the character whenever I'm not speaking, so that there's not an on and off switch between moments. So I spent a lot of time just figuring out his mannerisms, how he constantly sort of fixes his sort of waistline with his trousers, or sort of twitches in the leg, and how he places his hands, the arch in the back. So all of that sort of research, a balance of the physical characteristics as well as vocal ones.
That's really interesting. I mean, do you know if Raheem has seen it, or indeed any of the other players, or even Gareth, has he seen it?
I'm not aware that whether they've seen it or not. I haven't been told if they have. But if they haven't, obviously it'd be very exciting if they did come and see it. I think that'd be a very awesome, special moment. But obviously, it's something we leave up to them as players and managers, whether they want to come see the story. But they're very much aware of it, and it would be a lovely moment though for them to see it.
Are you a football fan in general? Because I know you're actually is it Welsh and Zimbabwean roots?
Yes, Welsh and Zimbabwean roots. Yeah, so not your typical dynamic duo, but yes, Welsh and Zimbabwean roots. So I grew up in Swansea. So yeah, one of my close friends from Swansea came to watch the show, and he was like, "Ooh, what's going on here?" Heard me sing "Sweet Caroline," but no, he loved it. But yes, it's I'm a football fan. I support Swansea City as well as Arsenal. Arsenal is a sort of the family club we support, and then Swansea being from home. So yeah, that's my club. Love Arsenal.
Good stuff. As do I.
Yes.
The strength of yourself as well. I mean, where I was sitting, you can see all the actors up close. But you get a part very early on where you're actually doing handstands, aren't you?
Yes, yeah. There's a moment in the show where we're sort of all the players are sort of peacocking and testing each other out and trying to show off about who's done this, who's done that, and I just decide to do a handstand and deliver my lines, bragging about how I was player of the month. So that was a lot of fun to come up with those moments in the rehearsal room.
So you actually chose to put that in yourself. It wasn't written into the script by James Graham.
No, it wasn't written in the script, and that's the wonderful thing about James and Rupert. They're so collaborative that, there are moments where it's like, oh, okay, we've got the words here, but what else can we find in this moment? And because I come from a dancing background and I sort of make a lot of movement-based work,
okay.
I was speaking to Rupert and he was like, yeah, you do handstands and stuff like that and movement things. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I'll play around with something there then to just sort of peacock. And then I was like, cool. So I sort of came up with, we sort of came up with the handstand idea, and it seemed to work. And yeah, it's a fun little cheeky moment. But always a bit like my heart's racing because I'm doing a handstand on a rake, and I'm like, oh, please don't bail on me. Please don't bail on me.
well, the time I saw you there, I was well impressed.
I'm glad.
Along with that, you do have a couple of serious parts, don't you? I think it's in the second half of the show where the subject of racism comes up, and there's also the piece about the St. George's Cross flag. You have a piece on that. That's it was quite interesting to hear how it all sort of came around in the performance.
Yes. And yeah, it's quite an interesting sort of arc, I think, for Raheem Sterling in the show, that, he's part of that sort of banterous, playing around with the players, teasing. But as the show progresses, you then get to see how he sort of has started to be very vocal about, the racism players face in the sport and everything. So it was I felt very honored to be able to carry that message, because it's something I'm passionate about, and obviously Raheem is passionate about. So yeah, getting that moment where he sort of speaks about the St. George's flag, and how he's proud of it, and he doesn't have a problem with it, but how it's quite difficult knowing that some people have a problem with him wearing that shirt or calling that flag his own. So it's very interesting, I think, to get to say those words and be caught in between those places as someone who's Black and British, being caught in that place of having the pride, but then also facing that, I guess, that resistance for you to take an ownership of your own story. But then also there are moments where he speaks about, the racism and chants from fans and all that sort of stuff and things he's faced. And, it's really tough stuff to chat about, but also very important. So, I just feel honored that I get to communicate that to an audience every night and remind them that, there's certain things that still need to be fixed, and there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very powerful. It comes across like that. Along with that, it does have its humorous moments. It also has its very sort of energetic moments as well. There's a lot of choreography that goes on within it as well. There's I noticed when you've all got the chairs. I'm careful of not wanting to give away too much for people that haven't seen it as yet, but there's a moment where you've all got the chairs in the air and running in between each other. There's a lot of stuff going on a revolving stage, isn't there?
Yes. And I tell you what, there were some very comedic moments in rehearsals where you just sort of lose your footing because one part of the stage is spinning clockwise, the other part is spinning anti-clockwise. You're holding a chair, and we all look like Bambi on ice for a few weeks. But we found our footing. But it's incredibly physical, the play, and I have to give it up to our movement directors, Ellen Kane and Hannes Langolf. They were incredible. Just getting us to feel and move like football players, getting us to move smoothly through all these set pieces, and for us to feel like a hive mind, like a team, all with one intention. They're all these wonderful moments. It really is this sort of sine wave, these emotional moments, incredibly humorous, incredibly physical. It demands so much of you. But that's why I think it's one of the most enjoyable projects I've ever worked on.
I think as well, that's an important thing you mentioned there, the people that maybe aren't on the stage, the people that are behind backstage and helping the performance go along. And for me, not someone who maybe goes to the theatre too often, but how many people are actually involved in a show or a production like this?
I mean, goodness. I mean, when we had our first read through, we had this massive circle in one of the rehearsal rooms. And I mean, you have 23 people on stage, I think 23 in the production, and then the creative team, and then the production team. I think there was about 60, 70 people in that room when we did the first introduction, but there's way more working on the production because, with a show like this, and the wonderful thing about the National Theatre is that there's not only a focus on just the people in the room or the creative team. The production part is really important. The learning department, who are constantly, in communication with what's happening in the show. And then they're doing a lot of work with, organizations like Football Beyond Borders to sort of create opportunities for young people. You've got the production side, who are just making sure that everything's running smoothly. You have the well-being side, who are looking after the players, and the creative team to make sure everyone is feeling good and feeling confident and feeling supported and feeling like they're in a safe space. So it really is a beautiful, supported environment. And a production like the National Theatre, and because of the building it is, you do have a lot of people working on it. But it's a thing. If you don't work in theatre, you don't realize how many people are working to make something happen. And even as an actor, there's so much work done before you have your first day in that rehearsal room. So much work would have been done before you even step into the room. So I have to salute the team at the National. They've really made this such a smooth process and really looked after us.
Absolutely. I guess in a way, it's almost like a football team. There's so many other aspects to just the 11 players that go out for a team on a Saturday afternoon.
Exactly.
But tell us about the National Theatre. Again, I'd never been there before, but I was blown away when I went inside there.
Oh God! I mean, it's every actor's dream. I remember when I first got into acting, and I just was watching videos back in doing my A levels, and they have this sort of platform where you can watch performances, and I'd watch performances of Rory Kinnear and all these wonderful actors, and just them doing great productions of Othello or Hamlet or even Frankenstein, seeing Benedict Cumberbatch in that, and just dreaming of working in that building or even being on the Olivier and finally getting there. Oh wow, that place. I mean, the building is like a maze. It's massive. you could get lost, but it really is a wonderful community. There's so many people who take pride in the work they do there. Every department is proud of the work they do, and they feel appreciated and they feel loved and supported. And it just makes you feel safe and allows you to really focus on your job as an actor and really deliver for what you're there for. But it's just sensational being on that stage, looking out to those people, the history of that building, the history of that stage. I feel incredibly humble and blessed that I get to step out on there every night.
Oh, congratulations for making it there.
Thank you.
I know it only runs until the 11th of August there. Do you know what will happen come the end of its run? Obviously, a lot of people say, it's in London. I can't get to London. Are there thoughts to take it elsewhere around the country? Do you know?
Oh, I mean, not that I'm aware of. Something I've been really trying to do is just really focus on the moment and really focus on being in that building and delivering that performance every night. But in terms of future life, there's nothing that we're aware of at the moment. But obviously, it would be wonderful for it to have a future life because it's a wonderful story. But really, I'm just focusing on enjoying the moment, enjoying being in that building, and I pray and hope more people get to see it in the future.
Yeah, no, it's really good, and I highly recommend it to anyone that does get the opportunity to go there. I mean, do you follow England, being sort of Welsh Zimbabwean?
Yeah, and it's one of those things that it's all around us. Even being in Wales, even if you're not actively following it, you feel already part of that story, because the identity, the national sport is part of the identity of being English or being British. So, and that's a beautiful thing. I think James Graham and Rupert have found connection with is using the sport as a metaphor for the nation. So yeah, I love the sport, and I love following the team, and I'm so excited for next year for the Euros. I'm not going to lie, if we do very well, I might be thinking maybe Dear England had a part to do in it.
Yeah, yes.
Who knows? But no, seriously, I'm really wishing the best to all those lads as they go and play next year, because following the team, but doing this show and getting to know what they go through, what the amount of work they do, what happens physically and mentally, I have even more respect for them. So I really wish them all the best, and I think it's amazing what Gareth Southgate is doing out there. And it'd be great. It'd be lovely for him to just bring back some silverware.
Yeah, wouldn't it just? I know that you've had appearances on the TV and in the film world as well. And I know you say you're concentrating very much in the moment, but is there anything coming up in the pipeline for yourself that you're aware of?
These little things, sort of projects here and there, mainly work that I'm making with my own company that I co-direct with Center Productions. So there's a lot of stuff with that, and there's always auditions and all that sort of stuff. But I never really celebrate or get excited too much about something until I have my first day on set or my first day in rehearsals, because there's so many variables. And it's sometimes you can get really excited for a sort of job, but you just have to sort of stay humble, stay in the moment, enjoy what's happening now. And if something does come along when it's right in front of me, I will enjoy it. But until then, what I have now is more than enough for me, and I'm grateful and blessed.
So a lot of lessons we can all learn from that. Kel, I know you're on Twitter as well, aren't you? Is that something you'd like to?
Yeah. I'm on Twitter and I'm on Instagram. It's at Ket Matsena, so that is KELMATSENA. I will try my best to post funny memes, but you can check me out on social platforms, Instagram and Twitter.
Lovely. Well, Kel, thank you very much for joining us. Much appreciated. Just giving us a little insight into what it's like to be on the stage at the National and part of this fantastic production. I'd also just like to take this moment to say thank you very much to Louisa Terry, also at the National Theatre, for all her assistance and help. But I wish you all the very best in the run that's left down there at the National. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much for the chat. I really enjoyed it. You have a blessed day.
Love that. Once again, my thanks to Ket Matsena there, who plays Raheem Sterling. And also, once again, thanks to Louisa Terry for all her kind help. That's it for me for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget, all previous ones can be found at your podcast provider of choice or 3lionspodcast.com. And you can also find the show on various social media platforms. Just search 3 Lions Podcast. As I said at the top of the show, the Women's World Cup has begun. I'll be back with you very soon with a take on how our Lionesses are doing. I hope you can join me for that. So until then, take care of yourselves. Cheers.